Hello and welcome to a new feature we've got on the Mental Health Gaming podcast called Deeper Cuts, where we take a longer look at issues around the video game industry, mental health, that sort of thing. I'm joined today by got Rebecca E and Rebecca K, but for the sake of no confusion, we're going to have Rebecca, who is Rebecca K, and Becky is Rebecca E. So how are you both doing?
Good, thank you. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Ready to talk about some strong women.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, and yeah, that's the whole point for bringing you two on. Me and Stu usually do a lot of the talking on the podcast, but we felt this wasn't something we should be discussing on our own because it's not us who have to suffer or have our gender appropriated in any way. So it made sense to get two female voices on to talk about it. And this obviously all came from the reaction to the character of Abby in The Last of Us 2, who is being referred to as a buff woman and had a lot of reactions that she's not womanly enough, or people couldn't tell if she was a man or a woman, some ridiculous notions aimed at it. So when it comes to women in video games, how do you as women feel when you see a lot of them? It's because there's a lot of over sexualization amongst women, which doesn't matter whether they're meant to be strong or not. It's overly sexualized, or there's still that trope of them needing to be safe. So just generally, like as growing up as gamers, how have you seen women in games?
Well, growing up, when I was a kid, there was next to no women in games.
Yeah.
There was Lara Croft, and that's it.
Yeah.
There'd be like some of your female fighters and stuff like that in, like Soul Calibur and Tekken, but they were kind of in the minority, and I don't know, I kind of felt always pushed to play as them just because, finally, I get to play as my actual gender, which never happened growing up.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. I think one of the things that I think obviously people have been really angry at The Last of Us Part 2, and I think I'm actually quite impressed with what they were trying to do. I think they were trying to bring quite a lot of voices to the table that just haven't really been there much before, and obviously it's not as it's not as bad as it was in the past, but there's more and more female characters coming up. But yeah, definitely in the past you got your sort of skimpily clad Lara Croft and people like that, and not really very many others really.
Like even the first game that I ever owned, that other than Pokemon, and it took till the second gen of Pokemon to be able to play as a girl.
Yeah.
But the first game I had was Diddy Kong Racing, and from the top of my head, there was only one female racer in that game. It was the tiny mouse. Everyone else was a boy.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that actually. One of the big games that I used to play a lot when I was younger was Crash Team Racing, which recently has obviously had a remake, and they've been putting more female characters in there, but I'm pretty sure the original roster just has one maybe, and there's a few that people often thought were female but they're not. It's mainly a roster of, and there's like human characters even, they're just sort of different animals and like monsters and stuff, but there's still not much in the terms of
even as a monster we can't get representation.
even that way. Yeah, it's and one of my favorite games of all time, Spyro the Dragon. There are first game absolutely no female dragons whatsoever, and it's weird because you're sort of thinking, well, where do all the dragons come from? And it was something that they hinted that they might address in the remake of Spyro as well, but it never happened, and I think people were very disappointed with that actually, in what was otherwise a really good remake, that it hadn't been brought forward a bit more into the current age. So yeah, you don't really get that much in the 90s anyway. When I was growing up, there was really not that much.
And then even like as we're moving forward to 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s, there was more females in games, but they were usually, highly sexualized. And as they've kind of been coming more into the 21st century, 22nd century, and all this, like with the representation, there's always backlash.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
when Lara Croft's character design changed,
Yeah.
there was huge backlash. And when Tifa's design was apparently changed,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, they shrunk her boobs,
Yeah.
and it's
oh
like,
God, disaster.
she's oh my God! First of all, you try wearing a sports bra, and she needs to wear a sports bra if she's hitting all them moves.
Yeah, definitely. I think it often feels like outrage for the sake of outrage, but I don't know. I think it's maybe this perception that gaming is still primarily for men, and so men need to be the people who are put in mind, but it's not so true anymore, and it probably wasn't even in the past. It's just that it's always been this very male-dominated field, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, because it's getting...
Sorry, what's interesting there, actually, listening to you two talk about that is, obviously, you mentioned games in the 90s. I grew up playing games in the 80s because I'm a little bit older than both of you. And every bit of female representation I can remember in video games back then was saving the damsel in distress. Obviously, Anita Sarkeesian had spoken a lot about the damsel in distress trope, and she nails it on a lot of occasions. I will say there's a few bits she says that I think I disagree with some of her blue sky opinions that she wants from things, but overall she nails it a lot of the time. And growing up as a teenager, I would see either I had to save the female character, or when it did come to someone like Lara Croft and she was meant to be a stronger woman, not, oh, well, we've got a woman as a main protagonist, it still felt she was aimed at me. It was pure titillation. It was sexualization aimed at teenagers to get to play her. You know, the rumors of cheat codes that you could get her naked and things like that. I'm not gonna,
that's what I thought of.
I'm not going to lie. As a teenager, I tried those cheat codes. They never worked. But you know, it's the way it goes.
I had someone show me the glitch where her boobs got bigger.
Yes.
There was one of those as well where you could just make the pixels larger. And yeah, no, there was a lot of, even in the 90s, a lot of that, you know, save the princess, save the woman, because even Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
Which has just gotten a recent remake. He has his overly sexualized girlfriend.
Yeah, I know.
Who, after the first game, is never mentioned
It
again.
looks really weird as well, doesn't it? Because Crash is like this little, you know, very cartoony, very goofy guy, and then you've got this very sexualized girlfriend character, and it's really weird.
It's like that scale of anthropomorphic. Like he's more on the animal side, whereas she's moving more towards the human side. Like she's very Lola Bunny in that aspect of like being very sexualized.
And it's the one thing I've noticed as well, like with a lot of the backlash that happens on Twitter of late, and what surprises me, I grew up in an era where it's like we had to save women, and women were the secondary characters; they were the prize. But a lot of the backlash seems to be coming from, not entirely, obviously, but a lot of it comes from younger men, boys, whatever, who I would have assumed would have been more in touch with not what the differences are in sexes, but, you know, the similarities we have, and how the woman isn't the fairest sex, and how gender doesn't matter as much. But it seems to be a lot of reactions from the younger age groups that really surprises me, whereas a lot of people from my generation, whether they think certain things or not, seem to be vocalising it a lot less. And that's worrying for me, that we're seeing younger people attack how they are.
Yeah, no, when I was thinking about this topic, one example that came to mind that is still pretty recent is when they released the image of Huntress for Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the promotional image had her like looking badass. Like she was, you know, in her Huntress gear, looking really cool. And one tweet that kept going around was a comparison of her dressed in a dress. And then this one's like, oh, they've, you know, defeminized her, they've made her ugly. And it's like, you, like, as a bi woman, I'm looking at that photo going, I want her to stand on me. Like, she's still incredibly attractive. Like, they're saying she's not attractive anymore, but she is. She's just looking, like, stronger to fit the character. Like, you know, you can't kick ass in a dress because, you know, you're going to flash your knickers and like, even on a windy day, a dress is awkward.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the sort of backlash from younger boys and men, I don't know if it's this thing around, again, sort of feeling like they earn the sort of gaming and that specific type of game, like the sort of, zombie games and stuff, which are sort of, I think, the ones that were more typically targeted at men. I don't know if it's something to do with feeling like somebody is encroaching on what is their territory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because a lot of like games like The Last of Us would have a lot of backlash from men saying like, oh, it's a leftist agenda,
Yeah.
stop pushing this. Because even after the comments came out about Laura Bailey, the vice president of Naughty Dog, Neil Druckmann, he released
Yes.
all the hate that he'd been getting.
Yes, and a lot of it was, are you, you're feminist. It was like attacking. I saw this the other day. A lot of it was saying it was sort of insulting for being feminist and
radical feminist scum, and
yeah,
and hopefully COVID-19 kills your whole toxic feminist studio.
It's ridiculous.
Horrible, absolutely horrible. And because they're upset at a video game, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, the representations are very, very important, but to go and then attack the people who made it is just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous because, like, see, a lot of this kind of, these same people who prescribe to these very right-wing, very homophobic, transphobic, and misogynistic kind of ideals, like, they all kind of coincide together. And when a game like The Last of Us 2 comes out, which is very kind of progressive, even when it came to the accessibility options, a lot of people were really hyping that up. I haven't actually played The Last of Us 2. I'm one of the few people that was never pushed on The Last of Us, the first one, but through like seeing all the stuff that Laura Bailey's been told and everything, I've gathered like kind of bits and pieces of the like ending plot which have contributed to some of the remarks and that she received. Like, it's like what the character she voiced did in the game apparently gave her caused a lot of the backlash as well.
So
and it's just like,
just to jump, I'll go off. I'll get very wary about jumping in and what that might show. But anyway, one thing I want to point out in the reaction to the way women are shown in The Last of Us 2 is almost like the game done a complete about face from what Last of Us was all about, where it completely doesn't. When you play the original Last of Us, and slight spoiler warning, there's a segment in there where Joel becomes completely incapacitated and Ellie has to fend for him. She has to go out, she has to hunt, she has to survive on her own and make sure Joel can get through as well. And it's a really interesting part where it's flipped the whole sort of like gender stereotypes really, really well. So anyone who's going into Last of Us Part 2, you would assume has some knowledge of the first game. And if they've got knowledge of that first game, seeing a strong woman who isn't in distress or isn't as feminine as you would expect, an it girl or something like that to be, shouldn't be as a shock, but they're treating it like it's a shock and someone's taken their game away, where it couldn't be any further from truth. It's just an expansion on what the first game was all about.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, you first.
And like, yeah. So, and a big thing of it is how Abby is like hates Joel, but Joel is, by the end of the first game, Joel isn't really the good guy. In the grand scheme of things, like he's kind of the reason The Last of Us 2 exists.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, because even though I haven't finished it, I know the whole story of The Last of Us. And
Joel's not a good guy. There's no way about it. His heart's in the right place. Don't get me wrong. He's doing it out of love, but he's not a good guy.
And yet, like, so this one person who, quite, like, I'm sure she has her reasons, is against him, and they're like, how dare she? Yeah. And she's not even a she. Look at those giant muscles. And once people started pointing out that women can look like Abby, like, there was one showing the tweet of the person she's based off of.
Yeah.
Oh, she's ripped herself, isn't she? So
Colleen Fott. Like she looks exactly like that with those ripped muscles. And then they started backtracking and go, oh, but it's in a post-apocalyptic world. Like you couldn't get those muscles in a post-apocalyptic world. It's like, maybe you couldn't. First of all, there's different body types across all genders.
Yeah.
That gain muscle quicker or lose it or put on weight in a particular way. And second of all, if you got the dedication, like she has to thrive for herself.
Yeah.
So, there's no laying around watching TV in the middle of a pandemic like we all are.
Yeah.
No,
There's,
at the same time, it's the suspension of disbelief that people have with certain things. If you look back at Lost and what that did, and people were able to accept that Hurley was able to continue gaining weight on an abandoned island where there was apparently next to no food. Yeah. But we can't accept that someone can continue to gain muscle in a post-apocalyptic world where we don't know the full backstory of what's available and what's not, and what they've done to train to get into those positions. I find when people want to suspend belief, it's always to suit some kind of agenda that they've got to have, and it's draining for me as a man seeing it. And I'm just going, I want to say we're not all like that, but when you hear not all men as a defense mechanism, you just go, I can't even defend myself, because it's the same as, in an ideal world, all lives matter, for example, should be a phrase that is right, because yes, everyone's life is equal and should be equal, and in the ideal world that would be true. But in the world we live in, all lives matter is a right-wing appropriated statement that is designed to put down people of colour and other minorities. And it's the same. Not all men is a way of trying to defend all men, when not all of us are, well, none of us are perfect for a start. But there are a lot of predators out there that we didn't even consider predators. So not all men just doesn't count anymore. So I feel awkward seeing it. So I can't even begin to imagine how women feel when they hear those sorts of statements and defences of the way women are shown and treated in video games.
Yeah, see, when I hear not all men, I'm like, yeah, but it's almost always a man that's saying it or doing it. So can you blame us from the law of averages to just be like, be wary? Because in every aspect we're wary. Like, I suffer from insomnia, and a great thing to do, a man actually suggested, why don't you go on a walk? And this was at about 10, 11 o'clock at night.
It's not really
and I was like, yeah, you want a disabled woman to go walking around in a urban setting at 11 o'clock at night on her own.
My family would never let me do that.
No.
No, it's a complete misunderstanding of what it is. It's, again, I've never walked through a town centre or down a dark street and felt that my life is at risk in any way, shape or form. But I'm not a woman, so I don't know what it's like. My partner, she's on the larger side. And when I hear people go, oh, women who are raped and things like that, they shouldn't dress how they're doing, and they shouldn't be this, they shouldn't do that. My partner isn't what you would say traditionally beautiful or desirable in the traditional sense of how the women are represented in the media.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean she's not a target, because people her size and so on and so forth have been targeted in the past. They have been raped, they have been attacked. And it's just because she's a woman. And it's there in life. And I again, it's one of the things I despise as a man, is when I hear other men going, well, it's not a problem for me. Yeah, because it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the anger that has come out of this has been really revealing as to, just how many people are just so, I don't know, so sort of misogynistic, I guess is the word. Like, it's the amount of anger and the fact that so many of those people feel, so it's sort of a vicious cycle, really, because if you think about it, they put these strong women in video games, and then it's released. Lots of people get angry about it. Lots of men get angry about it. They get angry about their game being taken away from them and stuff, which is an absolute load of rubbish. It's just like they're still capable human beings, and really, and then these same people go and attack a woman who has played those characters, It's not just been the women that have been attacked, but Laura Bailey particularly got a lot of horrible abuse, and it's basically just this cycle going around of violence against women over and over again, and they try to break that cycle, and they just keep getting abuse held at them, and it's really sad, because I think the game, it might not have been to everybody's taste, and I know that it's not necessarily been the most well received game from the public, at least, but I am impressed with what they were trying to do, not just in terms of including the female characters more as well, but in terms of what they were trying to do with the story, how they were trying to make you see the different sides of people, having you play as different characters and sort of showing their experiences, and not just, I feel like it was a good thing that they were trying to do, but it's just sort of been lost among all of this controversy that has come about. And I think it is really sad, and it sort of reinforces the same points that we were just talking about women not feeling safe in certain spaces. How can they be when a woman just voice acts a female character and she gets held with abuse for that character, even though she's not that character. She didn't write her. She is not her. She's just doing a job. And and even to the people who did write it, like they were trying to, I think they were trying to do something good, and for a big AAA game, that's it's good that they are trying to do that. They're trying to break away from the stereotypes, and they have a lot of influence. So I think it's very sad for me that all of this has sort of come about, because I think their good intentions have been somewhat lost among all of this controversy.
Yeah.
What's interesting with regards to it and the reaction Laura Bailey got through things is got me almost going back to Rebecca's point on Birds of Prey and films. The reaction to Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2 was nowhere near that. She was, she went from an absolutely vulnerable trope in the first Terminator film to an absolute badass in the second one. Now, don't get me wrong, she still has a couple of damsel in distress moments within that film, which are a shame. But on the whole, she's strong, she's powerful, she's the leader, she's the saviour of the world, not John Connor. He's not the saviour of the world. She's the saviour of the world because she helps him survive. And that was a really interesting point. And there was a massive positive reaction to her as to Linda Hamilton's character in the Terminator. And it then got me thinking to other films. And one of the ones that I think is going to go down as probably one of the most important films in recent history. And it's the one film I look at where I don't think there was any that I noticed majorly female trope in the film is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Where, okay, there's not a huge representation of women in that film, but you've got Gwen, Spider-Gwen, and apart from the outfit being pink, black, and white, it's an awesome outfit. I don't care.
It's a really cool outfit.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most stereotypical thing that it's got pink in it and women wear pink, but so bit with that.
Was Spider-Gwen predate that, and that would have been. Yeah, I think Spider-Gwen was originally a comic book series, so they couldn't just.
Yeah.
That began February 2015, and Into the Spider-Verse was out in. It was after that, anyway. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's a brilliant costume. If I could do it, I'd wear it because it's just that damn good. But she, at no point is there a damsel in distress moment in that film for her. She, in fact, actually does a couple of bits of being the saviour at times. She's not sexualised within that film. The only kind of moments where you look at and go, there's a bit of something, it's more awkwardness on both sides. It's more to do with an age thing, which I thought was really interesting, but she's not overly sexualised.
But isn't she a teen though as well? I'd hope she isn't overly sexualized, but at the same time, that is not unheard of.
No, it's never stopped people before. It's
there was recently someone on Twitter. They're the younger daughter of one of the founders of Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
And she was 15 at the time of the photographs, and they've been photoshopped to be sexualized.
Yes.
Yeah.
But go back to Kick-Ass and Hit Girl in there. She's not a preteen. No, not quite a preteen. I think she is just an early teenager in there, and there's a sexualization to her outfit. So, but yeah, with Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Gwen, I think absolutely amazing character. I love the comic books as well, and it's something I'll make sure my daughter reads as she grows up. But also, Aunt May in that film. In the previous Spider-Man films, Aunt May's a bit of a weak character. She gives a bit of advice, but she's a weak character. He needs.
I will say she's getting younger and younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a bit weird. Like she's like I grew up with the cartoons on TV, and she was always an old woman. And in Insomniac's game, she's an older woman.
Yeah.
And granted, they're making Peter Parker himself younger and younger, but it's still like she's still being portrayed by younger and younger women, or at least being perceived to be. Like they'd be kind of around the same age, but they're made to look younger and younger and younger, and this, sexy aunt that he has.
In the MCU one, that really took me aback. I didn't know who she was to start with. I just got introduced. I'm like, what? No, Aunt May? No, not happening. But in Spider-Verse, it's what's brilliant is even her. She's prepared. She knows what's ready to come. She's got this whole underground lab thing. Obviously, you probably built with the aid of her Peter Parker and stuff like that. But she's prepared. She knows all about it. She's in the know.
Yeah.
And she's strong.
That was cool. Yeah. No, she was just like, I've lived through all of this. I've got it.
Totally flipped the expectations on its head. Absolutely brilliant. But I watched that entire film, and they could have gone down a complete sort of love interest, love story type thing between the two, which is hinted at, but not in a way that she's the object of his desire. And I think that when you look back at that, that's going to be a real turning point in terms of it's the only film I can think of that I've seen where the idea isn't about having strong women or a film based around women, where the woman in the film is as strong as any single male character. And I think that's going to be a massive, vital point of when we look back going, that's where it changed. That's where actually it went mainstream and it changed.
Yeah, but tenor bets, a sequel will come and there will be a lot more of a romantic vibe between them, because that's just always what happens. Like the last Hobbit film, I hated it simply because of the shoehorned love plot.
Yeah. There has to be something like that in there, doesn't there?
For all the girlfriends who their boyfriends force them to go, like not because a girl may have read The Hobbit and is sitting there going, none of this happened in any of his books at all.
Yeah. Going back to Spider-Man, actually, I did quite like the way that the Insomniac game dealt with just the whole story, and the way that, I don't know, you play as sort of all different characters. You play as MJ at some points, who is this determined sort of investigator almost.
And guess what? Those same boys who hate on The Last of Us 2, guess what their least favorite part of Spider-Man was? I enjoyed it because I had to think out the box because I didn't have my superpowers anymore.
It really, you get these different sections for different characters, and then there's the parts where you play as Miles Morales, and which is really cool as well. And I really liked the way it sort of dealt with all of the characters, and Aunt May again was a really cool character.
Because playing as just want to make the point that playing as MJ was kind of like the bridge between the two. Yeah. Because Miles Morales was, had no powers, but he was also completely clueless as to what was going on. Whereas Mary Jane doesn't have powers, but she knew what was going on. She had lived this kind of life. She knew who Spider-Man was, so she kind of had a wildness to her. And then you've got the full-on Spidey, being able to kind of know what's going on and also have superpowers.
Yeah, and
so it was a nice bridge.
She's sort of constantly she's being told to some respect, stay out of this, you'll get in danger, but she just wants to do the right thing, and that her character was quite refreshing for me. You know, she wasn't.
Yeah.
And also the fact that their sort of relationship in the game, the relationship between MJ and Peter Parker, is one that's not. It's a difficult relationship that they have, and it's not. And she's not entirely included on the basis that she is just his love interest or whatever. She does have her own story. And I really liked that. And I was quite surprised when I was playing the game and it came to these parts where I was playing as a different character. I thought, wow, this is cool. I thought I would just be, Spider-Man for the full thing, but it's not just that. And in a game that's sort of about a superhero, that's quite cool. It's sort of showing that the ordinary people, as it were, can sort of be really important too. It's not just about sort of really powerful guy character. But other people also have a big role to play in a lot of
because even though you don't get to play as her, Aunt May, come back to Aunt May, she shows that the ordinary person could do a lot as well, because she started up the whole like shelter and like feeds people and runs the whole thing, and is clearly like
character. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she does it all without the superpowers, without the acknowledgement as well. It is absolutely outstanding, and the subtleness in that writing is actually a lot better than I think I first gave it credit for when I played the game. So absolutely brilliant that.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, I love that we are seeing more of this diversity and more of this like positive female representation without it being overly sexualized or them being the damsel in distress. I'm just so worried that this backlash on The Last of Us is gonna like
ruin
kind of scare some developers off.
So it's gonna happen at some point because she's going to be introduced to the MCU without a doubt. I can see that happening, and I reckon we might see her introduced into a game in some fashion. I don't know how.
Which Spider-Gwen?
No, Ms. Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Now that's going to be really, I think, it's going to be the tipping point one way or the other, because she ticks a lot of boxes that we'll call them what they are: the far right types, the homophobes, the racists, all of them. Yeah, she's just going to be a massive target. And that's going to be interesting to see what that does, because again, I've read those comics, the reintroduction, and again, outstanding. Her story is absolutely amazing to read. But I think there's been rumours of her coming to the MCU for a little while now. And if she proves popular there, she's going to be introduced into one of the games or even get her own game. But again, what do you see as being the reaction to her? That she's not just a woman, she's not just a strong woman, she's also a minority immigrant at the same time.
Oh, those boys are not going to like it.
No.
And when I say those boys, I mean the type of boys that are lashing out because a woman has muscles, or a woman is gay, or a woman beats up the bad guy. And sends death threats to the voice actress just because of it. I think there was a lot of backlash when her character Kamala Khan was first announced as being in the comics. Whereas you had two sides, one side going, yay, representation, this is great, which I was on the side of. I was like, oh cool, a superhero who's an immigrant and is a woman as well, because you'll always find they'll dip into people of color first with a boy. Yeah. Just like with Miles Morales. They will not.
Bizarrely, it's safe to do that. It's a safer option. Yeah.
It's the safer option. Like, okay, we're gonna give them a boy, but he's a person of color. Don't make it a woman and a person of color first off, because that's just giving them two bits of ammunition to throw at you, whereas they just hand off the one first and see how they deal with it.
Yeah. I, to be honest with you as well, it's not a defense. I don't blame the creators at times, because
the backlash that you get can be
no one wants to receive death threats. No one wants to the stuff they've put all their hard work into not sell well because certain people, and then having the reviews bombed and everything. I don't blame them. It's just that is a fear that stuff will it will impede some people on working on stuff like that, and giving female representation and stuff, because they're we need, like, if we want to make more games and, you know, have a livelihood, we're gonna have to concede a little bit, and it's just sad.
But you see as well the different reactions to men and women when it comes to their own personal opinions. Now, both of these people to me are absolutely reprehensible. And as much as I've enjoyed their back catalogue, I will never see or read or watch anything of theirs moving forward. But you look at the reaction to J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan.
Oh.
Graham Linehan, he's got a little bit of, oh my God, what are you doing, blah, 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 and he's been banned from Twitter. J.K. Rowling has the abuse she's got, and I don't, it's not defending her opinions. I think she's utter scum for what she said, as much as I think Graham Linehan's utter scum for what he said. But he's got off pretty lightly and is still given tons of attention. I haven't seen him being cancelled or anything yet across things. Whereas J.K. Rowling has had death threats, she's had rape threats, everyone's cancelling her, and it's just much worse because she's a woman with those views.
I think it's partially because she was a woman and partially because of what she had written. Harry Potter, it was such a strong connection to so many people's childhood that people wouldn't have the same connection to the stuff that Gary had written, Glynn had written, like Father Ted. Like, yeah, I'm Irish. I love Father Ted. It's great. He's an asshole. But when it came to Harry Potter, like, I don't have stuff related to Father Ted covering my walls in my bedroom.
Well, you're not a real Irish person, are you then?
May I point out that it was made in the UK? But yeah, so like, whereas I have, Gryffindor bedspread, for my 25th birthday, I went to the Harry Potter studios in London and had like a transcendental experience. I think it's not just that she's a woman; it's that her fans feel betrayed.
I think part of the reason it's Harry Potter specifically is such a hard blow to take is because it is this escapist sort of experience. It's really this magical world where you would think anything should be possible in a lot of ways, and yet there is this very determined blocking by J.K. Rowling, of trans rights, and I think one of the reasons that particularly sort of hurts is because you can tell in quite a few ways that J.K. Rowling was sort of trying to shoehorn things that she thinks are progressive into her own work. So lots of things have come out. She, at one point she said Dumbledore is gay, but you're not going to see any of that because she doesn't feel she wants to commit enough to that point that it will actually be there.
What was one of the ones she said that before the invention of plumbing, wizards just magicked away their poo?
Yeah, and the way that she's been, dropping these facts here and there about, different characters and, this character is gay and stuff like that. And when this sort of stuff comes out about, her real views, you do get this very big feeling that she has just been doing what she thinks is best for her and not really had anybody's real interests at heart in what she's been writing, which is really sad because for a lot of people, me included, Harry Potter has been such an escape for so long, and to have it ruined slightly, to have it tarnished by the author being this way is really quite upsetting. Like J.K. Rowling's sort of writing, like Harry Potter was a big introduction to many things for me. It was what got me into reading in the first place.
Exactly, literally.
Yeah, it was what spurred me to start reading and stuff, and it's been the same for a lot of people in the in the 20s. Like I think Harry Potter the first book came out a few years after I was born, and I grew up with it. To have it taken away in some small way is, well, not small, but there's this continuous debate about whether you can separate the art from the artist. And I get that is a really sticky point in a lot of ways. Some people say no because, let's face it, J.K. Rowling is worth a huge amount of money, and do you want to keep on contributing to her wealth? It's this really difficult point to get past. Can you? can you separate them?
I think you need to take your own personal stance when it comes to. I don't think there is ever any right answer.
No, there's no right answer, is there?
No, I took the stance of, okay, look, I loved Father Ted. I loved the It Crowd, bar a couple of questionable episodes. And on the whole, I really liked them. Now, that's not gonna suddenly change the fact that I enjoyed them and I would watch them if I saw them, but I'm not gonna take part in anything he does in the future. J.K. Rowling, I haven't read the novels, I'm gonna admit that, but I've watched the film. Which is even a step removed, ironically enough, because she didn't make the films, that was other people, but still, it's still her creation.
She was executive producer on it, though.
But it's her creation still, and you know what? They're fine films. I will still watch them. I can separate to that. But if she writes another book moving forward, or another film comes out based on her properties, do you know what? No, now I won't. So I think that's where, for me, that's where I do the separation.
Anyway.
Yeah,
they have been going downhill. The last Fantastic Beasts film was just
wasn't great.
I just thought it was a bit of a shambles, really. It was pointless and aimless, and I was sad because I did quite like the first one when it came out. I thought it was quite charming, but then the more it goes on, the more you think she's trying to sort of milk it for all it's worth, and without much real regard for any sort of. I mean, there were people pointed out some inaccuracies in the film as well. Like Professor McGonagall appears in the second Fantastic Beasts film, and I'm pretty sure people worked out that she would have only been a child at that point or something.
Yeah.
So like it very much feels like, and to be fair, like if she is just milking it and the quality is getting worse and worse, it's much easier to distance yourself from what she's going to do in the future, because you don't feel like you're going to be missing out on anything. So for me, that makes it a lot easier to if they're going to get worse, then I don't have to feel like I'm missing out on anything.
Contributing,
so really, I don't mind. She can keep producing the worse quality stuff, and I won't really be bothered by it anymore. But it is sad. It is sad to see some of you. She was a hero to me as a child, like an absolute hero. Like, and especially when you hear all the time about a sort of rags to riches story. She was very, very poor. She was a single mother on benefits. She was struggling to heat her house. She was struggling to feed herself a lot of the time, and it was almost sort of this Cinderella story that she made this magical world, and it made her one of the most famous authors in the world. And that was quite an appealing story for a lot of people.
It's like that adage, die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that is exactly what has happened with J.K. Rowling.
That is the end of part 1 of our discussion around women and their representation in video games. Look out for part 2.